Okay. So just to introduce our next presenter, it's Michael O'Loughlin.
That's right. Yep.
Got the pronunciation right. He's from Napier University. He's a VLE developer, so his presentation is going to be more geared towards the Moodle side of things, isn't it? But it's going to talk generally about the Helix Media Library, or Medial in brackets as he's got there. So he's going to run you through the usage of it. Questions, I mean, normally when we do these user presentations, there's quite a lot of questions off the back of it at the end, so feel free to ask the questions. If there's no, I'm happy to kind of come in if it's something specific about Medial, but I'll leave Michael to introduce himself and get on with his presentation. Okay, thanks everyone.
Cheers, Rob. Okay, everyone, thanks very much. As you know, I'm Michael. I'm a VLE developer at Edinburgh Napier University. And Rob kindly gave me a 1 hour slot. I don't think it'll take an hour. So I'm just going to show you a few slides, and essentially what it is basically what we use for media delivery, a little bit statistics, who's using it, and what our academics are saying, and a little bit, as Rob mentioned, about Moodle and what we're using it in Moodle for. So essentially what we're using it for, as I said, how well it's being used, and what we'd like to see going forward. Just a little bit background information about Napier. So we've got roughly around 18,000 students, and 35% of those students are overseas. We've got Moodle as our learning environment. It's currently on 2.6. Our roadmap is moved to 2.9 come February. We have around 5 Moodle instances. We've got the main Moodle instance for our main teaching and learning for the students. But we've got a series of other ones, and they're used for other teaching and learning contexts. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that just now, but if you do want to catch up later on and understand a little bit more about our Moodle setup, then I'll be happy to answer any questions. We also use Mahara as our e-portfolio tool. So a little bit about the key components that we're using at Napier for media delivery. We've got the Helix Media Library, or the Medial server. We're currently on 3.1. We're looking to go to 4 ASAP. For lecture capture, we're using Camtasia Relay, and some users are also using Fuse for their mobile devices. So essentially at Napier, we roll out Camtasia Relay to all the imaged PCs across all the campuses. So everyone's got an install of Camtasia Relay, and we also provide Fuse through our mobile device management platform. So we dish out iPads and so forth to like labs, and in particular our School of Nursing, who like to use the iPads we give them to do their practical work. So they use Fuse for that, and then what they'll do is they'll upload that into their personal category on Medial. So we also have got the Moodle LTI plugin, and that's the integration we have with the portal. And a little bit later I'll tell you more about the kind of the video assignment setup that we've got going on. And finally, really, as the other component is we've got Omni for TV recording as well, and I'll show you some stats on that just a little bit later. So essentially, this is our setup. You're probably very familiar with this kind of setup. So we've got an on-premise TechSmith relay server. So again, a lot of users using the relay and also Fuse. So I plucked the stats just a few days ago and noticed there's about 6 out of all the clips on the library itself. There's about 601 clips being uploaded via these methods from about 149 presenters. The Omni TV recording process, I'm not too sure if anyone's familiar with Omni, I'm sure they are. We use that. Academic requests a TV program to be recorded. Operator goes on, sets the EPG, and then that fires it to the Helix Universal mobile server, and then onto the library once it's done. And most of the time then what they'll do is they'll embed that into Moodle for their course. So that's the TV recording. And again, sorry, 35% of all the clips are coming from the Omni TV recording service. Moving on, so what we're using it for. So the main reason is obviously for teaching and learning in the main Moodle. Students are using the LTI plugin for submitting their assignments, and the academics are obviously using the plugin for delivering course material. And essentially what we use the Helix for is the how to help guides. A lot of people just like to use video as a way of letting their users understand how to use a service or how to use a system. we're trying to move away from 200-page manuals on how to do things. So little short clips. Myself and all the other developers that develop in Moodle, any plugins that we develop, any modules we develop in Moodle, we usually supply a short video on how it's done. Then we embed that into Moodle or embed it into the block in Moodle, so that certainly for the first few weeks of rollout, users can click and play the video and understand how it works. Up until kind of mid of this year, we have been using obviously the TV and film recording via the Omni service, and that was mainly used by our library team. However, up until kind of towards the last few months, they've actually moved to Bob National. I'm not too sure, does anybody know what Bob National is? Yeah. So it's Box of Broadcasts. We found that a lot of our library team were just recording everything, even though it wasn't being used. We ran some stats recently, and the amount of the films that were being recorded and nobody actually viewing them was amazing. So obviously storage requirements wise, that's massive. So they moved to Bob National. There's some positives, there's some negatives with that. Obviously with Bob National you can only play within the UK. We can't. So for our overseas users that's not possible. And essentially, so that's essentially Bob. I'm not going to go into Bob too much. So again, what we use it for is capturing lectures. So obviously, because we've got 35% overseas students, a lot of our lecturers are using Camtasia Relay to record their lectures. And I'll come on to some of their comments a little bit later. And obviously, we're now streaming previously recorded WebEx sessions. So what we've got in Moodle now is an integration with CircuLive. So that means that we can, within a classroom or within a course section in Moodle, we can spark up a WebEx session with the whole class, and that session can be recorded. Yes, it can be streamed through the WebEx server, but 9 times out of 10 what the academics are doing is they're essentially downloading that and sticking it up onto the media library, and then they're embedding that elsewhere for future reference. So that's what we're using that for WebEx. Some stats, I don't know how clear, that's not very clear, but we've got around 4,500 clips in total across the media library. You'll notice the main big one there is obviously the cinema and TV recording, and that was essentially from Omni. And the little graph at the bottom shows a kind of spike. So obviously around September, that's when our academics are going back in for the next session, getting their media prepared, getting it ready for Moodle and so forth. So we're seeing quite a good usage of the media library and the integration with Moodle as well. And this is the Moodle part. So what I wanted to try and get out of this is an understanding of how much Helix is in Moodle, Medial, should I say, and how much is being YouTube and how much is Box of Broadcast. Now, we all know that obviously YouTube is probably a front runner with these types of things. Certainly with our music school, they're going and putting YouTube clips in from there. Obviously, they can't do that through online video or through Helix for copyright reasons and so forth. But as you can see here, the light blue is essentially from the media library. So we're seeing a good usage of that, in particular in the books. And I don't know if, obviously a lot of people have got Moodle here, so you're familiar with books. So they're embedding videos in here. They're also doing it within labels and URLs. And there's quite a lot just within the main course sections in Moodle as well. But you'll notice that although we have switched to Bob, there's very, very little intake of Bob videos being embedded in Moodle so far. And a lot of that's to do with actually the integration with Bob in Moodle is not that great. In fact, it's terrible. So that could be one of the reasons why they're not being used that much. So what our academics are saying and what our students are saying as well. So one of the academics I was talking to recently was saying, well, from a Camtasia Relay point of view, it's the time efficiency compared to other methods of producing the materials, in particular for distance learners. The distance learners are liking the videos being embedded in their Moodle course pages. They're finding it very useful. And our on-campus students are obviously saying, well, I can now pause and rewind and replay you back, and it's useful. So they're essentially loving that just now. So again, some of them are going back over their notes and they're filling in the blanks, which is good. And one other academic that I've been talking to as well, now I haven't got any hard stats on this, but they feel that it's increasing the interaction in Moodle between the on-campus students and the distance learners. They find that the distance learners are finding a much more things in common to talk about through their chat and through their online chat. And they find that obviously in last week's lecture they don't have different versions essentially from each other, so they're finding a lot more consistency, and they can talk about things that are much more topical and again not something that's been kind of written as she says here 2 years ago. So I think they're finding that the gap between distance learners and on-campus users through using the media library and with video using lecture capture has definitely significantly improved the student experience. What we'd like to see, and I know I was talking to Rob earlier on about this, a lot of the things here you'll find that are either already there in version 4 or they're certainly coming very, very soon. The main thing from the Moodle point of view is video feedback and assignments. There's a lot of our lecturers want to be able to leave video feedback or audio feedback in response to either a video assignment or just any other type of Moodle assignment. Currently, what we had been doing is a bit of a workaround. As you can see there, essentially what it was is just to add a standard Moodle video to the course page, restrict it using Moodle restrictions so that only that student can play back that video. It's a bit of admin work, so we're looking forward to seeing obviously the feedback mechanism introduced. As I mentioned earlier on, we do have multiple Moodle installs, and one of the problems that we have at the moment is we're obviously only using one of our Moodle instances against the media library. What we would like to be able to do in future is basically plug in any of the Moodle instances that we have to the media library so that anyone across all those instances can use the same facility. We would like to see students would like to see a plugin in Mahara. Very recently, students want to put their videos that they've had from their personal category as part of their portfolio, but they don't want to make the videos public. They want to be able to keep it secure, but still show it through their portfolio. So some sort of plugin would be quite useful. And just a few more. Students can only upload to their personal category from Fuse. Now, I've just seen the previous presentation that Rob done. I've just seen that they can now search the media library from within Moodle, which in our current version they cannot. So we'll leave that one out, but it'll be useful for them, because essentially what they've been doing is they've been taking an iPad, running through Fuse and uploading it to the media library, but then at that point they've hit a stumbling block because they go into Moodle and they couldn't search, but now obviously with the latest version they can. So that's going to be very useful for them. And this was just my thinking around the kind of security context that sit within the media library. We kind of have an instance where some media that is IP restricted within the LTI, it bypasses that security, which is fine, but not within secure groups. I don't know if anybody else has had that. It could be just me getting completely muddled up in Moodle. But if you have any instances of that, I would quite like to hear about that, or how you're set up in using secure categories and IP restriction would be quite useful. We also had some issues in the summer. We found that have embedded multiple clips within the course section page. We had some issues with playback, where some videos, so a video at the top of the page, you could play it, you could then refresh the page, and that video would actually appear in another video on further down the page. I don't know, again, if anybody's noticed that, but just a couple of things that I picked up on. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So that was quite short, but thank you very much for listening. I'll take any questions. Thank you. I've also got my colleague James here today. So again, if you have any questions just now, happy to answer them. Or if you want to catch up later on around our Moodle setup or our Medial setup,